The exact point where a thing ceases to happen is rarely marked by a sound. It is more of a vibration that simply stops. One moment, there is the texture of an event, the friction of an interaction, or the weight of a task. The next, that texture has vanished. It is a sharp transition that feels soft. If you are watching a clock, the second hand moves, and the previous minute is suddenly a fixed entity, something that is no longer being built. There is no announcement. The air does not change color. Instead, there is a literal thinning of the present. What was just occurring has moved into a different category of existence. It is no longer now. It has become then. This happens in the space of a single breath. The door clicks shut. The car engine cuts out. The final word of a long sentence is spoken. There is a brief, microscopic delay before the mind acknowledges that the sequence has reached its natural limit. We sit in that tiny gap where the ending is complete, but the realization has not yet arrived. It is a neutral point. There is nothing to do yet. The ending is simply a fact that has just been established. When the movement stops, the physics of the room seem to reset. If there was pacing, or the shifting of weight, or the motion of hands, that kinetic energy doesn't just disappear. It seems to soak into the furniture. The stillness is heavy. It is the kind of quiet that occurs after a large machine is turned off. You can almost hear the lack of friction. The dust motes in the air, which were previously swirling in the wake of someone's passage, begin their slow, vertical descent. They are no longer being disturbed by breath or gesture. Everything settles. The curtains hang straight. The floorboards stop their subtle creaking. It is an absence that has a physical presence. You notice the weight of your own limbs because they are the only things still holding a remnant of momentum. The rest of the environment has returned to a state of equilibrium. There is a sense that the room is catching its breath, though it has no lungs. It is a mechanical rest. The objects in the space are no longer props in a scene. They are just objects again, sitting in the dark, indifferent to the fact that the movement has concluded. The silence that follows a noise is not the same as the silence that exists before one. It is a reactive silence. It carries the shape of the sound that just left. If there was music, the air seems to retain a phantom frequency. If there was a voice, the walls seem to hold the final syllable. This silence is thick and layered. You find yourself listening for the next thing, but the next thing does not arrive. The hum of the refrigerator becomes a prominent feature of the landscape. The ticking of a clock in another room feels unnaturally loud. These are the sounds that were always there, but they were masked by the primary event. Now that the primary event is over, the background noise of the world moves into the foreground. It is a transition of focus. The ears adjust, expanding their range to fill the void. You become aware of the distant sound of a car on a wet road 3 blocks away. You hear the internal mechanics of the house. The silence is not empty. It is full of small, neglected details that have finally been granted permission to be heard. A space changes when it is no longer being used for its immediate purpose. A dining room after the guests have left is not the same as a dining room before they arrived. The geometry is identical, but the feeling of the volume has shifted. The air feels thinner or perhaps more compressed. The chairs are at slight angles, no longer tucked neatly under the table. There is a lingering warmth in the upholstery. These small physical deviations create a version of the room that is temporary. It is the after state. In this state, the room feels larger. Without the distraction of activity, The corners of the ceiling and the shadows behind the bookshelf become more apparent. You notice the way the light hits a particular patch of wallpaper. You see the scuff marks on the floorboards that were previously invisible. The room is no longer a backdrop. It is the subject. It is an environment that has been acted upon and is now resting. It feels as though the walls are observing the emptiness. There is a quality of waiting, though there is nothing specific to wait for. The room is simply existing in the wake of what occurred. Sometimes a conversation doesn't end with a conclusion. It simply stops. The last sentence hangs in the air, unfinished, or perhaps just final in its own way. The participants move on, but the words remain in the room for a few moments longer. They are invisible traces of intent. In the quiet that follows, the mind tries to pull the threads together, but there is no more thread being spun. The air where the voices were feels occupied. You can almost see the trajectory of the last thought as it dissipates. It is a strange suspension. The physical act of speaking has ceased, but the intellectual echo persists. You might find yourself looking at the spot where the other person was just standing. The space is empty now, but it is still defined by their previous presence. The silence is punctuated by the phantom rhythm of speech. It is not an uncomfortable state. It is just a factual one. The dialogue has been archived. The air returns to its neutral state, one molecule at a time, until the room is once again just a room, and the words are just memories. There is a specific kind of quiet that arrives when something long-lasting finally stops. It is unfamiliar. It feels like a new frequency that the ears aren't quite calibrated for. If you have lived with a certain sound or a certain presence for a long time, its removal creates a vacuum. The quiet feels heavy, almost loud in its intensity. It is a pressure against the eardrums. You might find yourself making small noises, clearing your throat, or tapping a finger just to test the acoustics of this new environment. The quiet reveals the true size of the world. It reveals that the world is mostly made of empty space. Without the noise, the scale of things seems to grow. The ceiling feels higher. The distance to the door feels longer. This quiet is not a lack of sound. It is a new state of being. It is the sound of the clock ticking, the sound of the wind against the glass, the sound of your own heart. It is a confrontation with the fundamental stillness of things. It is a quiet that does not ask for anything. It simply sits there, waiting for you to become accustomed to it. Objects and surfaces do not forget immediately. A chair holds the heat of a body for several minutes after the person has stood up. A rug retains the indentations of footsteps. A door handle is still slightly warm from a hand. These are the physical echoes of an ending. They are the evidence that something was happening right here, just a moment ago. As you look around a room where something has just concluded, you see these small markers. They are disappearing, of course. The heat is dissipating. The fibers of the rug are slowly springing back into place. The metal of the handle is cooling to the ambient temperature of the room. It is a slow-motion erasure. You are watching the physical world return to its default state. It is an observational process. There is no need to interfere. You are simply witnessing the last few seconds of a presence as it fades from the material world. Soon, the chair will be cold, the rug will be flat, and the handle will be neutral. The memory will no longer be held by the objects. It will only be held by the mind. There is a specific sensation in the hands once a task is over. They feel light, perhaps a bit aimless. After hours of gripping a steering wheel, or typing, or holding someone's hand, or carrying boxes, the fingers retain a phantom tension. They stay curved in the shape of the work long after the work is done. You might find yourself looking at your palms, resting them on your lap, or feeling the texture of your own skin. The hands are in a state of transition. They are moving from doing to being. This stillness can feel strange. We are so accustomed to the hands being the primary interface with the world that when they are idle, the body feels incomplete. But in the moment after something ends, the idleness is the point. There is nothing to pick up. There is nothing to fix. There is nothing to hold on to. The hands can just be hands. They can rest on the arms of a chair or hang by your sides. They are instruments that have been put back in their case. They are waiting for the next requirement. But for now, they are simply still. Even when the event is over, the body remains in the space. You are still there, sitting or standing in the exact spot where the ending occurred. The mind might be moving forward, replaying what happened or wondering what comes next. But the physical self is anchored to the present. You feel the weight of your heels on the floor. You feel the pressure of your clothes against your skin. The body is a witness. It has its own way of processing the conclusion. It slows down. The heart rate finds a new, lower rhythm. The breath becomes more shallow and steady. You are a biological entity in a quiet room. There is a sense of solidity in this. Whatever has ended, the body continues its internal work. It breathes, it circulates blood, it maintains its temperature. This continuation is a quiet constant. In the aftermath of a change, the body is a reminder of the physical reality that persists. It doesn't need to do anything. It just needs to exist in the space that has been left behind. Time behaves differently in the immediate aftermath of a conclusion. Without the forward momentum of an activity, the seconds seem to expand. A minute feels like a much larger container than it did before. You become aware of the passage of time as a physical sensation rather than a measurement. There is no rush. There is no deadline. The ending has removed the pressure of next. You are in a temporal clearing. In this space, the now feels very wide. You can observe the slow movement of light across the wall. You can notice the way the shadows lengthen. This stretching of time allows for a different kind of observation. You are not looking for results. You are just looking. The world is not moving toward a goal. It is just moving. This is the natural pace of things when they are left alone. It is a slow, rhythmic unfolding. You are not losing time. You are simply inhabiting it more fully. The seconds pass, one by one, and each one is a complete unit of existence. Sometimes, you can almost see what is left behind, not as a ghost, but as a subtle change in the atmosphere. There is a lingering quality to the air in a room where something significant has just ended. It might be a scent perfume, wood smoke, or just the smell of rain on a coat. It might be a temperature difference, a pocket of warmth where someone was sitting, or it might be something less tangible, a sense of density. The air feels used. It has been shaped by the voices and the movements that recently occupied it. As you breathe, you are interacting with the remnants of the event. It is a slow process of dissipation. The air circulates, mixing with the outside world, gradually losing its specific character. Eventually, the room will smell like nothing in particular again. The temperature will equalize. The density will vanish. But for these few minutes, the air is a record. It is a medium that holds the immediate past. You sit in it, breathing slowly, as the record is gradually erased by the simple passage of time. When the big thing ends, the small things become huge. Your attention, no longer occupied by the primary narrative, begins to wander. It settles on things you have seen 1,000 times but never truly looked at. You notice the specific pattern of the dust on the baseboards. You see the way the paint has chipped slightly near the doorframe. You observe the texture of the fabric on the sofa, the individual threads interwoven in a complex grid. These details are the true substance of the world, but they are usually ignored. In the quiet after an ending, they offer a kind of grounding. They are facts. They are stable. They don't change when a situation ends. The wood is still wood. The metal is still metal. The light still obeys the laws of physics. There is a comfort in this mechanical reality. The world is made of millions of tiny, unremarkable details that continue to exist regardless of what happens to us. You find yourself staring at a single point on the wall, and for a moment, that point is the most interesting thing in existence. The mind has a tendency to loop. In the minutes after a conclusion, it often goes back to the final few seconds. It replays the last look, the last word, the last sound. It does this not to analyze, but simply to verify. It is a way of confirming that the ending actually happened. Each replay is a bit softer than the last. The details begin to blur. The sharp edges of the event are rounded off. It's like watching a film that is gradually fading. You remember the way the light looked in that final moment. You remember the specific tone of the final sentence. Then the loop expands. It includes the moment just before the end, then the moment before that. The mind is archiving the experience, moving it from the active now into the storage of the past. It is a natural, quiet process. You don't have to direct it. You just sit there and let the images flicker behind your eyes until they eventually settle and go still. An ending is not the same as a disappearance. When something ends, it still exists. It just isn't happening anymore. A book doesn't disappear when you reach the final page. A conversation doesn't vanish once the voices stop. The event is still a part of the world's history. It has left its mark on the room, on the objects, and on you. It has a shape. Disappearing would imply that it never occurred. But an ending is a completion. It is a boundary. You are standing on one side of that boundary now. The other side is the past. There is a weight to this realization. The thing that has ended is now a solid object in your memory. It can be looked at from different angles. It can be thought about. It is no longer fluid. It is fixed. This permanence is part of the quietness. There is no more uncertainty. The outcome is known. The structure is complete. You are simply existing in the space that remains now that the building of that structure has stopped. When something significant is removed from a room, the space it occupied seems to linger. If a large piece of furniture is moved, there is a vacuum in the air for a while. The same is true for events. The space left behind by a person who has just walked out, or a project that has just been finished, has a specific volume. You can sense the dimensions of what is gone. The room feels hollower. It's as if the walls have expanded slightly to fill the void. This empty space is not a negative thing. It is just a new feature of the environment. You might find yourself avoiding that particular area or staring into it. It is a visual representation of after. Eventually, the air will redistribute. The room will reclaim its uniformity. But for now, the gap is visible. It is a reminder of the scale of what was just there. It is a quiet, neutral emptiness that asks for nothing. It just sits there, an open space in a quiet house, illuminated by the dim light of the evening. It is always surprising how indifferent objects are to our endings. A lamp stays on, a clock keeps ticking, a half-eaten apple remains on a plate. These things do not acknowledge that anything has changed. Their persistence is a kind of grounding. The world is indifferent to the narrative. The physical laws that govern the placement of a coffee cup are the same before and after a life-altering conversation. Looking at these ordinary objects provides a sense of continuity. They are the baseline. You can look at a chair and know that it is still a chair. It is solid and dependable. It doesn't care that the person who was sitting in it is gone. This indifference isn't cold. It's just factual. It reminds you that the larger world is still intact. The house is still standing. The street is still there. The mundane reality of the physical world provides a quiet, steady rhythm that continues underneath the silence of the ending. You can rely on the objects to stay exactly where they are. Outside the room, the world is moving at its usual pace. You can hear it, a distant siren, the sound of a neighbor's door closing, the wind in the leaves. These sounds are a reminder that your ending is local. It is contained within these walls. Beyond the glass, the machinery of the city or the woods is functioning as it always does. This creates a strange contrast. Inside, there is stillness and the weight of a conclusion. Outside, there is flow and the repetition of beginnings. The two worlds are separated by a thin pane of glass. You can watch the headlights of cars moving along the road, each one representing a different story that is currently in the middle of something. The world doesn't stop to observe the silence in your room. This is not a tragedy. It is just the way things are. The continuity of the outside world is a steady hum that eventually pulls you back toward the regular passage of time. For now, though, you are content to listen to it from a distance. The stillness eventually moves from the room into the self. The racing thoughts begin to slow. The physical tension in the shoulders drops away. You find yourself in a state of internal equilibrium. It is a quietness of the mind that matches the quietness of the space. In this state, there is no need to think about what happened or what will happen. You are just being. You are a person in a chair. You are a person breathing. The internal landscape becomes flat and calm, like a lake at dawn. There are no waves. There is no wind. This internal stillness is rare. It usually only appears in these brief windows after something significant has finished. It is a moment of total presence. You aren't reaching for anything. You aren't pushing anything away. You are just a witness to your own existence. The silence is no longer something you are hearing. It is something you are participating in. You are as still as the furniture, as quiet as the air. There is always a pause. Before the next thing starts, there is a gap. It might last for a minute, an hour, or a day. This is the true moment after. It is the neutral zone. You have finished one chapter, but you haven't turned the page to the next one yet. You are just holding the book. This pause is important. It allows the ending to settle. It allows the space to clear. We often feel a desire to rush through this gap, to find the next activity, to fill the silence. But the pause has its own value. It is a state of potential. In this stillness, everything is possible because nothing has been chosen yet. You are at the 0 point. The air is clear. The room is quiet. You are sitting in the doorway between what was and what will be. There is no need to move. The next thing will arrive in its own time. For now, the pause is enough. It is a complete and valid way to spend a moment. There is a temptation to name the ending, to categorize it, to decide what it means. We want to move forward into the understanding phase. But in the quiet that follows, there is a case for not rushing. There is a case for just letting the ending exist without a label. You don't need to know if it was good or bad, a success or a failure. It was simply a sequence of events that has now concluded. By not rushing forward, you remain in the reality of the moment. You stay with the quiet. You stay with the objects in the room. You stay with the feeling of the air. Rushing forward is an escape from the present. Staying in the aftermath is a form of attention. It is a way of honoring the fact that something happened. You are not looking for a lesson. You are not looking for a way to grow. You are just looking. The silence doesn't need to be filled with thoughts. It can just be silence. Silence can be uncomfortable if you try to fight it. But if you let it exist, it becomes a companion. It fills the room like a physical substance. You can lean into it. In the moment after something ends, the silence is the primary occupant of the space. It is what replaced the noise. When you stop trying to think of something to say or something to do, the silence changes. It becomes less like a void and more like a presence. It is a soft, heavy blanket. It muffles the sharp edges of the world. It provides a buffer between you and the rest of reality. Letting the silence exist means not turning on the TV, not checking your phone, not humming a tune. It means just being in the room with the quiet. It is a form of rest. The ears rest. The mind rests. The air itself seems to rest. Everything is at peace with the fact that there is nothing more to be heard. We have a habit of wanting to wrap everything in language. We want to say, "That was a hard ending," or "That was a relief." But language is often too small for the actual experience of the moment after. The feeling of a quiet room doesn't have a name. The sensation of a heavy silence doesn't fit into a word. In this space, you can let go of the need to describe things. You can observe the light on the wall without calling it dusk light. You can feel the coolness of the air without calling it chill. There is a freedom in this namelessness. It allows the world to be exactly what it is, without the filter of our definitions. The ending happened. The quiet is here. You are here. These are facts that exist before language. They are raw experiences. By not naming them, you allow them to remain whole. You don't fragment them into concepts. You just let the reality of the moment sit there, unnamed and complete. The conclusion of an event is a finality, but it isn't an erasure. The past doesn't disappear. It just stops being the present. It becomes a foundation. Everything that just ended is now a layer of your life. It is beneath you. It is part of the architecture of who you are in this moment. Even as the room grows quiet and the movement stops, the fact of what happened remains. It is like a stone that has been placed in a field. The act of placing it is over, but the stone is still there. You can feel the weight of it in the background of your mind. This is a neutral realization. It doesn't have to be heavy in a negative way. It's just the way the world builds itself. One ending at a time. One completed sequence after another. You are standing on a long history of things that have ended. This latest one is simply the most recent addition to the floor beneath your feet. The quiet that follows is different from the quiet that will come later. This is the immediate quiet. It is still vibrating with the energy of what just was. It is a resonant silence. If you sit very still, you can feel the air settling back into its place. The house makes its small noises, the expansion of pipes, the settling of the foundation. These are the sounds of a physical structure being itself. In the quiet, you become a part of that structure. You are another object in the room, subject to the same laws of physics and time. There is a sense of belonging in this. You are not separate from the quiet. You are a part of it. The ending has brought you to this state of shared stillness. It is a quiet that doesn't expect an answer. It doesn't require a reaction. It is just a state of being that exists after the doing is done. It is the natural conclusion to any sound. And so, the moment continues. There is no grand finale to an ending. There is just the slow fading of the immediate into the distant. The room remains. The shadows continue their slow crawl across the floor. You are still sitting here, or perhaps you are finally getting up. It doesn't matter. The transition has happened. The space between what was and what will be is still here, and it is still quiet. There is no resolution to be found, because the ending itself was the resolution. The story stopped, and now there is just the air. You might stay in this quiet for another minute or another hour. The world will wait. The next thing is not yet here. The current thing is gone. There is only the soft, neutral presence of the now. The light is dim. The house is still. The moment after something ends is simply a space. And in this space, there is nothing that needs to be done. It is just a place to be.